We know how this goes every year. At each position, there are one or two guys that absolutely blow it up at the combine, and all of a sudden it seems to send their draft stock really soaring. I think beyond question, the tight end that falls into this category is Mike Gesicki from Penn State. He went out there and he lit up the combine. Lit it up. And as a result, now you're talking about a guy that I think there are plenty of people in the draft community were kind of dismissing because he wasn't polished and so on and so forth. So now all of a sudden you're getting him mocked by people like me to potentially go in the tail end of round one. It's funny how that works. And sometimes you have to be careful because you're saying, does the combine validate what you saw on film? Or is there the potential that this guy's a t-shirts and shorts guy, that he's a workout warrior, and it could potentially be fool's gold? And honestly, at this point, I'm still not fully certain what the answer is. Because there are times that I look at Mike Gesicki and I say, you know what? He's better than I gave him credit for. Then there are other times where I watch him and I sit there and say, nah, this is a workout warrior. So let's talk about Gesicki as a prospect and kind of what he brings to the table. He's got okay size. The biggest issue is he's going to need to add some weight because I think he's only about 240, 242 pounds. You'd like to see him get to 250, maybe 255. But he does, to be fair, have really good height and ideal length for the position. And you look at him and you can easily envision him being able to add 10 to 15 pounds of weight on his frame over time and not really impacting his athleticism, which is easily his best trait that he brings to the table. You know, you get into an NFL strength and conditioning program, make a baby or two, Bob's your uncle, you're a 260-pound beast. That's the way you do it. But really good height and great length for the position. Also a really good athlete. Explosive burst off the line, just explosive burst in general. This you did see at the combine, and this typically does translate to the field. Decent vertical speed. I mean, for a tight end, pretty good vertical speed. There were times where I didn't think he played as fast as he tested at the combine, but you could see enough elements there to say, yeah, this guy's a pretty good athlete. When talking about a Dallas Goedert and saying you're not sure he's the type of guy that could truly be a mismatch type of dude, Gesicki has enough length and athleticism where he can fall into that mismatch type of category, which is why he will get drafted higher, probably significantly higher than Dallas Goedert, even if he necessarily shouldn't. I also thought he had really good hands, good consistent hands, showed the ability to make basic catches, generally was a very good hands catcher. Again, this tight end class so far has impressed me with their ability to catch the ball away from their body, catch the ball with their hands, as opposed to the wide receivers in this class who don't. And he shows the ability to make some of the one-handed spectacular catches, which at times you're going to need. You're going to need a guy that can go up and get the ball. You're going to need a guy that can make the tough catches. And Gesicki can. His catch radius, because of that ability, is really, really good. He can adjust to the ball well. He can go up and high point it. He can adjust to balls that are poorly thrown or thrown at his back shoulder, thrown low, throw away from his body. He can go get all of those. So a guy with really good athleticism, solid hands, and the ability to catch the ball wherever it's thrown in his zip code. Not a bad baseline. Also, his athleticism flashes after the catch. He can make people miss. He's got the speed to take a little out and turn it up and get some extra yardage. He will lower his shoulder, although he's not going to pick up a ton of yards that way because he's not that strong. He's not overly physical in terms of his play style. Also was able to play every game the past 2 seasons. I know he missed the second half of, I think it was the Indiana game in 2017. But hey, at times that's going to happen. But still pretty reliable, being able to answer the bell time after time after time. In terms of my concerns with Gesicki, because those right there seem to be those traits and characteristics that you look at and you say, ooh, he's got something. Well, his route running, while it's not terrible, his route tree isn't particularly huge. And he's really kind of gangly and awkward in a lot of his movements. His footwork in and out of some of his breaks is pretty good, but especially his upper body. Like I said, he just looks like one of those spindly, gangly looking dudes, just all types of weird. He's going to have to tighten up his movements and make those movements have purpose. He's going to have to expand his route tree to reach his full effectiveness. The other major significant concern is his blocking ability. As I put in the scouting report, don't even ask. He doesn't know how to block. He doesn't want to block. And by God, if you draft him, you probably hope that he will never have to block for you because he is terrible. He can't even block corners and safeties on blitzes. It's not his bag. It's not his game. It's not his deal. It's not what he does well. The challenge with that is while I talk about, hey, if you're drafting a tight end high and you're worried about his blocking ability, you're stupid. I stand by that. However, you want to have a tight end on the field that can at least do a little bit of something as a blocker, do a little bit of something to help out, because if he doesn't, he runs the risk of potentially being a role-playing type of dude that you only put in there in pass-catching situations, or you run into a situation where when you do put him on the field, you're telegraphing what you do. Oh, Gesicki's on the field. I ain't running this bitch. All we got to do is figure out what the hell pass play and formation they're running now. So that's the danger with a guy like him. All the athleticism in the world, pass-catching ability for days. But if he can't block and he's a one-dimensional player and NFL teams figure that out, then it really hamstrings you in terms of how you can use the guy. It really limits what you could do with him as a tight end within your offense. And how high do you want to draft somebody who is a situational role player? I mean, I think that's a fair question. I look at him, though, and I say, you know what? He doesn't ever have to be a great blocker. And nor do I think he ever will be. He just needs to get better. And in the NFL, he's going to have every opportunity to get better because you would assume the coach that brings him in is going to demand that he gets better there. And ultimately, eventually, hopefully the light bulb will turn on with him that he's going to have to block a little bit better if he wants to see the field more, if he wants to be a starter, and he wants to make the type of money that his size and athleticism lend themselves to him being able to potentially make in the NFL. In terms of comparisons for prospects, in terms of an athletic profile, he reminds me of David Njoku last year. I mean, he's not quite the world-class leaper that Njoku is, even though Gesicki freaking tore it up in the vertical. But an explosive athlete, a little bit undersized, but good height, great length, and really a good, solid athlete, and that athleticism actually translates to how he plays the position. That's kind of what he reminds me of athletically. As a player, he reminds me of a Kobe Fleener when he was coming out of Stanford. Fleener was a guy, you weren't asking him to do a lot of inline blocking, even though he played in Stanford. He was okay there, but at the NFL, he just wasn't going to be good enough. He is primarily a one-dimensional player. And when he's on that one dimension, he could be all right. And when he's not, then you really don't get anything out of him. That's kind of what I see out of Gesicki. Now, I've mocked him in late round one in the past couple of mock drafts I've done, and probably will continue to do so because I envision teams looking at him and saying this is a guy with athletic upside. He could be a mismatch problem. We can line him up all over the place, and I totally get that. But to me, I feel like he's more of a late round 2 to early mid round 3 type of guy because just something about him, it's like, if he was that athletic and he was this and he was that, he should have been more productive. He should have been better. And I really have concerns because his blocking is so mortally bad that it will really impact his ability to get on the field, especially early on in his career.